The video you're about to watch is a tribute, a dark adaptation inspired by the twisted genius of Junji Ito. A master of visual and psychological horror, Ito is renowned for crafting stories where obsession becomes a curse and the human body is a canvas for nightmares. His works like Uzumaki and Tomi have redefined terror in ink and silence. But be warned, if the idea of floating heads, distorted faces, and the silent pull of your own death creeping above the skyline unsettles you, you may want to look away now. Because once you've seen your face in the sky, it never stops looking back. Los Angeles, 1947. Fog crawled like a sickness across the boulevards. The rain hadn't stopped in 4 days. It bled down neon signs and washed secrets into the sewers. The city was quiet, not peaceful quiet, but the kind that presses against your chest like a warning. Detective Eli Blackwood hadn't been a cop in 6 years, not since the funeral. Not since the headlines called him the butcher's shadow for shooting a suspect live on radio. These days, he lived 2 blocks from the liquor store and 1 from the cemetery. He was feeding coins into a coffee machine at Union Station. When he saw her again, June, the daughter of his dead wife, red umbrella, green skirt, pale as milk, and above her, floating silently in the rain, was a balloon. Not just any balloon. A head, her head, swollen, gray, and slowly turning in the wind. He didn't call her name, he just watched. The balloon drifted behind her like a predator too patient to pounce. Its neck string swayed with invisible tension, and the air felt colder around it. June didn't look up. She never did. When she boarded the trolley and vanished into the mist, the balloon followed, weaving above telephone wires and chimneys like it knew the way. Eli lit a cigarette with a trembling hand. His lighter wouldn't stay lit, like even the flame didn't want to be there. He thought of the headlines from last week. Aspiring actress found hanged from rooftop balloon. They said it was suicide. But they never explained why her face was smiling from the thing that hanged her. Later that night, Eli found himself at the Oracle Lounge, where the jazz was bad and the bourbon worse. That's where he met Carlo LeMay, a freelance photographer who claimed he had pictures of sky ghosts. Said they only appeared in double exposure shots. Carlo's eyes were the color of ashtrays, and his camera smelled like burnt leather. He opened a torn envelope and slid a photo across the table. It showed a skyline, and above it, faces, dozens of them. Some smiling, some screaming, all floating. Eli didn't speak. He just slid the photo back and stood up. "You know they follow fame," Carlo whispered. "That's the deal. You get a taste of light and they wait for the fall." "What the hell are they?" Eli asked. Carlo didn't blink. "They're you, just ahead of schedule." 2 nights later, Eli stood on the roof of his apartment, half drunk and shaking. The wind whispered through the antennas and loose shingles like a song hummed by the dead. He had brought binoculars, not because he believed, but because he feared he did. And there it was, floating 3 buildings away, just over the cracked chimney of an abandoned garment factory. Another balloon. A new one, larger. He zoomed in. His face, but not quite. It was his jawline, yes. His crooked nose, but the eyes. The eyes were hollow, bottomless pits ringed in black. And the mouth was open, as if mid-sentence, trying to scream through the sky. Then, it spoke. A whisper dragged through rusted metal and echoed off rooftops. "You've seen too much, Eli." He stumbled backward, dropped the binoculars. They shattered like glass bones on the gravel. When he looked back up, it was gone. June came to visit the next morning. She looked thinner than he remembered. Her lips were cracked, her fingernails raw from nervous chewing. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I think I'm being followed," she said, twisting her scarf. Eli didn't ask why. He knew. He poured coffee, black as guilt, and sat with her in silence. "They float," she whispered, "above the houses, above people who talk too much, people who want to leave the city." He leaned in. "You've seen yours?" She nodded. "I tried to ignore it. I moved apartments, changed my name, cut my hair, but it found me again last night, right outside the window. It was staring into the glass. She pulled a photo from her purse. It showed a reflection of her in a window. And above her head, faint but clear, a balloon with her same terrified face. But here's the part that really scares me, she said, voice cracking. I took that photo from inside a building with no windows. Desperate, Eli returned to Carlo LeMay. This time the photographer was drunk, manic, and half-packed to flee the city. They don't like being seen, Carlo said, flipping through his tattered notebook. Each picture you take, each mirror you check, you're poking the sky with a stick. They remember. They wait. Eli grabbed him by the collar. What the hell are they? Carlo went still, whispered. They're shadows made from light. Echoes of guilt so heavy they need helium to float. You ever hear the story of Narcissus? These are the reverse. They're not in love with themselves. They loathe their reflection. So they chase the original, and when they catch you, he didn't finish, just pointed to the last page of his notebook. A list of names. All crossed out. All dead. Except for the final one, E. Blackwood. The next days passed in a blur. Eli walked the streets like a ghost in a trench coat, noticing others looking up, pedestrians staring at the sky in fear, drivers abandoning their cars, mid-traffic, children crying without knowing why. The city was infected. Newspapers didn't mention it. The radio only played static when he turned the dial to certain frequencies. The static sometimes sounded like whispers, or maybe laughter. One night, he followed a woman through Koreatown who was talking to her own balloon. Please, not yet. I still have work. She turned a corner. By the time Eli caught up, she was hanging, the balloon drifting higher with the rope still attached to her neck. Tunable to sleep, Eli returned home and pulled out an old case file, his final one before retiring. The Butcher of Silver Lake, a serial killer whose last victim was never found. A case closed too cleanly, a bullet fired too early. Eli remembered the moment clearly now. The suspect had surrendered, but Eli still pulled the trigger, claimed he twitched. He remembered the look in the man's eyes before death, a look of recognition, as if he'd seen something in Eli. Maybe the balloon came for him that night. Maybe it had waited 6 years, hovering in the fog, growing larger with each year of denial. He played back his old confession, recorded during internal affairs inquiry. Halfway through the tape, static. Then a voice, his own. You don't deserve to be buried, Eli. You belong in the sky. Eli sought refuge in the one place left untouched by balloons, St. Vincent's Cathedral. There were no mirrors, no glass, no open windows, and no sound. The pews were empty, the air stale, the crucifix dark with soot. He sat in the back and tried to pray, not for forgiveness, but for release. Then he saw it, a small piece of paper, pinned to the altar. It was yellowed, handwritten, and bore no title. Just a list of rules, scribbled in rushed, jagged script. Don't acknowledge it. Don't speak its name. Don't take pictures. Don't run. When it whispers, confess. At the bottom, a name, Father M. Wren, followed by a date crossed out, February 11th, 1947. That was tomorrow. And suddenly, Eli knew. The priest was next. That night, the city broke. A blackout swept across 5 boroughs. Phones crackled. Street lamps buzzed. The moon vanished behind bruised clouds. And the sky filled with balloons. Hundreds, thousands, each one bearing a face. People screamed from rooftops. Gunshots echoed in alleyways. Some tried to pop the balloons with rifles, but the bullets passed through as if the air itself refused. Violence. Eli stood in the middle of Grand Avenue, trench coat soaked, revolver in hand. He looked up and saw everyone he'd ever failed. The rookie partner who took a bullet for him. The informant who died because Eli was late. His wife. Her daughter. And then, floating just above street level, so close he could hear it breathe, came his own balloon, whispering his name. repeating the confession he refused to make. "You didn't fire out of fear, you fired out of hatred." Eli ran, not because he thought he could escape, but because the human body still believes in survival, even when the soul has stopped trying. He climbed the old Watts radio tower, wind howling like wolves. The city looked like an ashtray from up there, black smoke curling from distant fires. His balloon followed, slowly, soundlessly. He screamed into the void, "What do you want from me?" The balloon didn't answer. It simply tilted its head and opened its mouth. And inside, instead of teeth, were eyes, hundreds of them, watching, judging, knowing. Eli fell to his knees and whispered, "I did it. I hated him. I wanted to kill, and I liked it." The balloon paused, then nodded. The rope descended, slowly, like an invitation. Eli stood, tied the loop around his neck, and stepped off the tower. The next morning, June walked along a foggy sidewalk in Bunker Hill. She passed a newspaper stand. The headline read, "Retired detective found dead, suicide or sky ritual." She didn't cry. She looked up. The sky was clear, no faces, no strings, just blue. But as she turned the corner, a soft breeze caught her scarf, and she paused. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she saw a balloon string in the gutter. Then it was gone. She kept walking, and above her, unseen, something began to descend. June didn't scream again. She couldn't. The air had thickened, as if the world around her had been dipped in molasses, her breath suspended in some invisible weight. The balloon above her shifted, turning slightly as if observing, calculating. Then it began to descend, slowly, elegantly, like a noose sent from heaven. She ran, not toward safety. There was none. She ran toward the one place that had always terrified her, Eli's old precinct, the 13th Division. It had been shut down for years after the shooting scandal, the building now left to rot behind rusted fences and broken glass. But June remembered something Eli once told her. The truth always hides in files no one wants to read. Inside the precinct, mildew clung to the walls like ghost skin. Water dripped from exposed pipes, echoing like a metronome for madness. She found the records room buried beneath the holding cells, locked of course. She smashed the glass with a metal coat hook and turned the crank slowly, her hands bleeding. Inside, she found what she didn't know she was looking for: the registry, a ledger, handwritten, bound in human leather, or something that felt like it. Inside, rows and rows of names and faces, but not just criminals. Every person who had ever reported a balloon. Next to each name, a final column. Redeemed, YN. Almost all marked N, except for one, E. Blackwood, Y. Then, near the bottom, a fresh entry, J. Whitmore, pending, her name, written in ink that was still wet. She heard the door creak open behind her. She turned. Nothing. Then, the sound of feet not touching the ground. She backed away from the registry as a shape emerged in the hallway. Not a person, not a balloon, but something between. A floating face stitched with other faces, a string made of braided hair, and dozens of mouths whispering at once. Truth without guilt is fantasy. Guilt without confession is weight. Weight must rise. Weight must rise. June fled the room, blood streaking the floor behind her. The halls changed as she ran. Doors that had been locked swung open into staircases that led nowhere. Elevators dinged on floors that didn't exist. Time bent. Reality thinned. Outside, the city was transforming. People now walked the streets hand in hand with their own balloons. Some begged forgiveness. Others negotiated. A few smiled, completely surrendered. Above, the sky swirled in a counterclockwise spiral, clouds forming a vortex that pulsed like a heartbeat. Police sirens looped endlessly without origin. Buildings trembled as if trying to shake off their occupants. One billboard blinked with a message in crimson light. Ascension in progress. In the suburbs, people began constructing scaffolding. They weren't fleeing. They were preparing to join the sky. June arrived at Eli's grave, but there was no tombstone. Only a patch of dirt, churned as if something had crawled upward. She fell to her knees, screamed at the wind. "What do you want from me?" And the sky answered, a single voice, not male or female, not human, just knowing. "Your story." Then, silence, and a single string floated down, brushing her cheek like a lover's goodbye. She reached for it, hesitated, then pulled. June didn't die that night. She split. Her body remained, slumped by the grave, empty-eyed. But her consciousness was pulled upward into the collective spiral. She awoke somewhere above, not heaven, not hell, but a suspended plane of mirrored clouds and pulsing thought. Around her, thousands of others drifted, faces she recognized from dreams, memories, nightmares. Some were laughing, some were silent, some just stared back. And in the distance, a great balloon, the size of a city. It bore no face, it was all faces, woven into a skin-like canvas, stitched with names. It pulsed with light, and each pulse made her ears ring with words she couldn't understand. Not language, but meaning. Ancient, cosmic. "You are the weight of your sins. We are the lift. Together, we balance the sky." June saw Eli drifting nearby. He looked young, peaceful, but his balloon, still above him, remained taut. "I confessed," he said, "but I didn't accept." She understood then. The ritual wasn't about punishment, it was about equilibrium, and the city, this broken, bleeding world, had become too heavy. So the sky began to harvest. Back on Earth, people stopped resisting. They tied themselves willingly, not to die, to be remembered. And above every balloon now floated a new word, carved into light: admission. As if each face had become its own obituary. Newspapers stopped printing. The internet failed. But the sky wrote everything, and the spiral grew. June made her final choice. She let go, let the tether wrap around her wrist, let herself drift higher toward the mother balloon. And as she rose, she whispered a single sentence that no one heard, but everyone felt. "We are the weight, we are the wind, we are what we hide, and what we can no longer carry." Years later, the city remains empty, except for the faces in the sky. Tourists avoid it, planes reroute, birds refuse to fly overhead, and on certain nights, when the clouds break and the moon is high, some say you can still hear Eli's voice, reciting old case notes into a tape recorder that no longer exists. And sometimes you see her, June, drifting just above the bell tower of St. Vincent's, smiling, because in this world, the balloons don't cast shadows. They only reveal them.